quadruple, instead of pairs, quadruples. That's in the case of the division, summation case. So, okay, I have some time to promptly hastily prepared slides on optimal transport, so because I really feel like it's a motivation for me to visit here when I'm to be able to communicate with Professor McCain and Professor Wong. So, so optimal transport, well defined. We have a cost function C, and then have a coupling, and then find the optimal coupling. So the interesting thing is to see how this geometry that's generated by the optimal transport problem is interacting or related to invariant geometry. There's some interesting precursors to this work. Kim McCain definitely is one of the earlier paper that shows the link with the manifold of M cross M, which is still under investigation. I think the relation of how does that relates to it. And then Professor Wong here did a very interesting work on using logarithmic diagram. Sorry, that just comes off. Okay, so we recently, this is a joint work with a postdoc fellow in my lab, and so we just look at this so-called MTW tensor in the optimal transport problem, which governs the regularity condition. So the MTW tensor is non-negative. MTW, the Mar-Trillinger-Wong gave some conditions for the transport map to be regular, namely. So they gave the number one is MTW is non-negative for all orthogonal vectors, and then the support will have the relative C convex property. So what we find is that, we consider some special kind of a cost functions. So one case we consider is this phi x minus y. Phi is a convex function. And we consider another case of the cost function, which is a d alpha, where a convex function is okay. So what we showed is that, so now with this, if we look at the tangent manifold of this underlying omega, which is defined as the different set of this, and if we compute the orthogonal bisectional curvature, it is exactly twice as this MTW tensor would give you. Okay. So the orthogonal bisectional curvature is related to, in complex geometry, to the holomorphic sectional curvature. And then there are some arguments from the complex geometry perspective as to what this regularity condition would mean. So our paper tried to try to explain that the optimal transport geometry, the Wassermann geometry, the optimal transport geometry is somehow related to the Kähler geometry of the tangent map. And also we show that the relative C segment, they actually match to the geodesic of the conjugate connection. So relative C convexity of two sets would mean the geodesic convexity with respect to the conjugate connection. So this is where we map a pair of conjugate connections to the C convexity. Okay, so let me, yes, I think I need to wrap my time. So finally, this is my final slide. I want to say that, so we're looking at a way of looking at a unifying tool here, perhaps, for discussing physics, statistics, and information. So information geometry. So in some other work, what we have discovered is that information geometry also provides a way to address problems in mechanics. So in mechanics, we have the Lagrange formulation and the Hamiltonian formulations. Lagrange formulation being energy minimizing, and Hamiltonian being energy conservation, right? But the underlying geometry are quite different. The Hamiltonian is the symplectic geometry, right? And Lagrangians, you have the spray or semi-spray geometries. So, but these two are linked with each other because the Lagrangian Hamiltonian, they satisfy a Legendre coupling of the two. What if this coupling is not satisfied? What if, in fact, the divergence function in information geometry precisely characterizes this decoupling of the Lagrangian Hamiltonian? So divergence is zero if and only if the Lagrangian Hamiltonian are coupled. But in our case, in the information geometry, divergence is never zero. So we look at the divergence, non-zero, non-negative divergence function, and trying to look at what happens to a system like a mechanical system, but really not mechanics. But we try to now look at what kind of canonical dynamics we can derive after we decouple the Lagrangian Hamiltonian side of the dynamics. And another thing is we are also looking to is about this reference between bipolarity, which we have some results that relates to what we will call it statistical mirror symmetry, but I'm not going to give any detail. So we are writing this up. So the part we find out is that because the statistical structure can be enhanced to a Kähler structure, and we know a subclass of the Kähler geometry is a Calabi-Yau manifold. Calabi-Yau manifold is a special class of Kähler geometry, the Kähler manifold. So this provides a very intriguing kind of a suggestion or hint that somehow this duality that's being exposed in invariant geometry somehow may be linked in some way to some symmetry that people study in string theory. And in fact, one of the symmetry we're looking into is so-called the mirror symmetry. Mirror symmetry. There is a very precise, well-defined way of studying mirror symmetry by string theories. But if we strip out a lot of other ingredients, so when we look at the bare kind of essence, we think it has something to do with the correspondence between a complex geometry and symplectic geometry. And from that perspective, we think invariant geometry will provide also a window to peek into that kind of a symmetry that's very unexpectedly revealed itself in statistics. And if that turns out to be the case, that will provide a vast amount of models to study this kind of mirror symmetry, because statistical models are not. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. I really appreciate it.
So let's have some quick questions.
Sure. Here is a question. What is the applied meaning of all that? Why should one care if there is a Kähler structure? Or maybe why should one care that the curvature of the space of this mu sigma with right metric is negative? How does it influence concrete statistical problems?
Oh, so now how it would influence the concrete statistical problems? Okay, there are several concrete, like for instance, the non-informative prior question. That's certainly we can cast it geometrically, and the estimating problems. There's the estimating function. So there's a way to cast it as being a so-called pre-contrast function. So there are some like well-defined statistical problems we can cast it into this language of invariant geometry.
How does using this language helps to solve those problems?
Okay, how does it help to solve this problem? Well, for instance, I think the example I gave about the various statistical estimators as linked by the alpha parallel prior, so far it's the kind of, to me it's the most kind of illustrating kind of example of how using invariant geometry can potentially link the various estimators in one unified fashion. But what does that mean and how does that, unfortunately people haven't followed up on that. So since I'm already published the book, that's because I guess people are still struggling with understanding this alpha connection, alpha parallel prior, what do they mean in this setting. But I think potentially that's being important because they are able to link the various estimators in a unified way. So that, and then there are other problems about estimating functions. I would still say that it's in the very beginning of the problems.
Other questions? Okay, I'll just ask one. So we know that the exponential families are duly flat.
Yep.
So what are your examples for partially flat manifolds?
Right, partial flat manifolds. Basically, any statistical model is a partial flat manifold. So the way we do is as follows. So, given any parametric probability model, you have a parameter, right? You have this. We use this parameter as being the affine coordinates, as being coordinates, and we associate a flat connection to it, flat curvature and torsion to it. Okay, so it's always right. Then we use the Fisher-Rao metric G to construct its dual connection. Turns out this dual connection has to be curvature-free but with torsion. So this is the partial flat model. So very general. So a partial flat model becomes dually flat, becomes Hessian, if and only if the new connection we constructed is a coordinate, is torsion-free, which is equivalent to the dual. The G by orthogonal frame is a coordinate frame. They form coordinates. So in other words, from any statistical model, so you have a parameter and so forth, right? So in machine learning, we do natural gradient, which is natural gradient flows. The natural gradient flow themselves is the G by orthogonal frame. Okay, but usually they don't form a coordinate frame. That is to say, the Lie brackets they don't close. They are because if you flow different directions, so they may come. So that's the obstruction to that being an exponential model. So and this paper just came out, and we hope that some machine learning people will be able to make use of that, that fact to design algorithms. So given that already the Hessian manifold there is existing link.
So if there's no more questions, let's thank the speaker again.